Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jayo Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudhirayet. Hare Krishna, good morning. So everybody speaks English? English. So we'll read English today. So we're reading from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 12. Chapter 12, text 33. Yep. So please repeat. Iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasayam surotamo darshayam asatur deving puro yanena gacchatim iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasaya surotamo darshayam asatur devim puro yanena gacchatim tasya iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasaya surotamo darshayama satur devim puro yanena gacchatim. Ladies. Iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasaya surotamo darshayama satur devim puro yanena gacchatim. Iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasaya surotamo darshayam asatur devim puro yanena gacchatim. Anybody else? Then word by word, please repeat. Iti, thus. Vyavasitam, contemplation. Tasya, of Dhruva. Vyavasaya, understanding. Sura Uttamo, the two chief associates. Darshayam, asatuhu, showed to him. Devim, exalted Suniti. Puraham, before. Yanena, by airplane. Gacchatim, going forward. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. The great associates of Vaikuntha Loka, Nanda and Sunanda, could understand the mind of Dhruva Maharaj, and thus they showed him that his mother, Suniti, was going forward in another plane. Purport. This incident proves that the Shiksha or Diksha Guru, who has a disciple who strongly executes devotional service like Dhruva Maharaj, can be carried by the disciple even though the instructor is not as advanced. Although Suniti was an instructor to Dhruva Maharaj, she could not go to the forest because she was a woman, nor could she execute austerities and penances as Dhruva Maharaj did. Still, Dhruva Maharaj was able to take his mother with him. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj also delivered his atheistic father Hiranyakashipu. The conclusion is that a disciple or an offspring who is a very strong devotee can carry with him to Vaikuntha Loka either his father, mother, or Shiksha or Diksha Guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, "If I could perfectly deliver one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission propagating Krishna consciousness to be successful." The Krishna consciousness movement is spreading now all over the world. And sometimes I think that even though I am crippled in many ways, if one of my disciples becomes as strong as Dhruva Maharaj, then he will be able to carry me with him to Vaikuntha Loka. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscham Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadi Shatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Sankarshana Karanato Yashai Garbhodashai Chapayobdishai Sheshascha Kala Sanijanandakya Sharanam Mamastu Namo Mahavaranjaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauratvise Namaha Namaste Halagraha Namaste Mushalayuda Namaste Rivatikanta Namaste Bhaktavatsala Namaste Dharanidhara Namaste Balam Shishta Pralambare Namaste Stvei Himam Krishna Purvaja He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padambujo Radhamadana Mohano Divyadvrindaranya Kalpadru Mada Srimadradangara Simhasanasto Śrīmad-Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prashtalivi Semamana Smarami Śrīmandra Sarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatastitaha Karsham Veno Svanai Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare. Once again the verse. Iti vyavasitam tasya vyavasaya surotamo darshayam asatur devim puroyanena gachatim. The great associates of Vaikuntha Loka, Nanda and Sunanda, could understand the mind of Dhruva Maharaj, and thus they showed him that his mother, Suniti, was going forward in another plane. Hare Krishna. So I feel very lucky that I'm able to lecture on this verse in purport, because it's a very famous purport actually. If you heard attentively, I think most of you did, it's very maybe shocking, but also extremely endearing to hear Srila Prabhupada, how he is expressing his emotions and feelings. Srila Prabhupada used to say that his purports are his dictated ecstasies. So Srila Prabhupada used to translate and dictate these purports always very early every day. So usually he goes to go to bed around 8, 9, and then he used to wake up at already 1 o'clock. And from 1 o'clock onwards he would translate. So he managed to translate all Chaitanya Charitamrita from the 2nd canto till the 10th canto, and a few other smaller books in just how many years? This in less than 10 years, 7 years. So every day Srila Prabhupada was doing this, and he said that he put in these purports all his emotion, his soul, his life, and especially his ecstasies. And this is one of the purports where you can really feel his humility, his incredible emotion. Even, of course, Srila Prabhupada is such an exalted personality. Still, he's saying that he hopes that one of his disciples, which mainly were Westerners, whom he had rescued from a deep well of confusion, hedonism, socialism, hippieism, all kinds of crazy ideas. And he delivered them, and still he's saying that he hopes that one of his disciples will become strong as Dhruva Maharaj, so that he will be able to carry me with him to Kuntaloka. So this is the true sign of an advanced devotee. A truly advanced devotee never sees himself as the master. A truly advanced devotee always sees himself always as a disciple towards his own spiritual master. And following the example of his own spiritual master, who also will have an ideal character, because that's what he's mentioning here. He's mentioning that his own spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, expressed the same emotion. So following the footsteps of his own spiritual master, he is expressing the same sentiment. So the first, you could say, qualification of a guru is that he doesn't think himself a guru. A guru who says, I'm a great guru, you do what I say, when I desire something, it has to happen. I know there's some funny gurus from India. He's saying, sitting on a Vyasasana, and he's saying, today I will order the sun to not rise at 7 a.m. It will rise at 9 a.m. And all his disciples are like, whoa, Guru. They believe him somehow, I don't know how. Next morning the sun rises exactly the same time. But there are some gurus who are like that, very pretentious. And that's a clear sign that this person is not a true guru. A real guru is always in Guru Parampara. He's in direct connection through the lineage of spiritual masters, in connection to Krishna or the Lord. And he will not see himself as a guru. He may act upon as a guru. He may initiate disciples, but his internal emotion is, I am the disciple of my own guru. So as long as this quality is there, this type of qualified spiritual master is described in the Bhagavad as Sevyaka Bhagavan. So this person can be respected and worshipped like Bhagavan, but he actually is in a position of he's the servant of Bhagavan. He's the best servant of Bhagavan, and because he is such a qualified servant, he is respected as Bhagavan, and he's also addressed as Bhagavan. He's giving a big throne, he's giving a garland, he's giving so much respect and honor. And that respect and honor that one may receive oneself because as we progress in the path of bhakti, we hear this very interesting description that we have to be careful not to allow the anarthas to grow stronger than the bhakti plant. So the path of bhakti yoga is sometimes described like a garden. So maybe some of you have a garden. If you live in the city, you can also put in your window or in the balcony, Many people are doing this now, urban gardening, on the rooftop, so you put some plants, maybe some vegetables. And the tendency will be that because in the earth there are so many seeds already contained, all kinds of other seeds will also start growing, You want to grow carrots, but so many other seeds are also growing, so many other plants are also growing. And if you are not attentive and you neglect your garden, then very soon the weeds will overgrow the actual plant you wanted to grow. And then you will not harvest any carrots, because the weeds grow very fast. So in a similar way, the path of bhakti is described in a very similar way, that the path of bhakti, or the plant of bhakti, is like a seed. It starts from a seed, which is put in the heart by the spiritual master. And this seed will start sprouting, and growing as a plant. But as we progress in spiritual practice, we also will experience some side effects, So we will receive maybe some honor, Somebody will say, "Oh, you're such a dedicated devotee, You're doing puja so nicely, You can speak so nicely, you can sing so nicely." And so on and so forth. So the nature of the false ego, of ahankara, and the mind is that it tries to enjoy at every moment. So enjoyment is the nature of the soul, the self. It is also described in the Brahma Sutras, Ananda Maya Vyasat. So it is by nature that we want to enjoy. It is not foreign, it's also not to be suppressed. We want to enjoy. It is the nature of the soul to enjoy. The question is, how do we enjoy? Do we enjoy independently? Do we enjoy egoistically? Or do we enjoy in connection with the Supreme? Do we enjoy through seva? So we have to enjoy, we will enjoy. Without enjoyment, we cannot survive. Of course, in the material world, this enjoyment might become perverted, and some people, I don't know, sometimes to get attention, you might do something silly, and stupid, which is maybe bad for you, and you think, just getting some recognition might be enjoyment. But ultimately, we are hankering for some form of enjoyment, and it can be very gross, just related to our senses, eating something, smelling something, touching something, hearing something, seeing something. Or it can be more subtle, getting a sensation, a feeling, an achievement, an understanding, accumulating knowledge, information, having the feeling of control, or also recognition. Is very powerful. We always want some recognition, attention from others. I don't know if you have experienced this, but I experienced it when I was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in Vienna. Vienna, Vienna? It's a city not far from here. It's the second biggest German-speaking city. And they're very proud. Vienna people are very proud. And when you stand there in the street and try to give them a book, in other places they will say, "I have no time," they will say, or "Get lost," But in Vienna, they ignore you. So that's worse. Being ignored is worse than at least getting negative attention. If you get negative attention, you can say something back, maybe. But if you're just ignored, that's tough. So we want to be recognized, we want to be seen. And this is called Labha, puja, lava, pratishta. So these are subtle forms of enjoyment that we are hankering for. And we can get those also as we progress in the path of bhakti. And if you're not attentive, we might be enjoying this recognition that you're receiving instead of actually enjoying in the path of bhakti. And it's very subtle. You can become even proud of being humble. I am the most humble. Look how humble I am. I bow the deepest. My dandavat pranams, are really like a stick. I don't even go over my knees. I just go, diving. We can become proud of anything. So we should be very careful not to fall in this trap to try to enjoy separately of the Lord. Because then this enjoyment, this tendency that we have for enjoyment will become an obstacle. And just some days ago, Savyasachi Prabhu was here, and Advaita Singha Prabhu asked exactly that question. It's like, are we allowed to enjoy? Should we enjoy or should we not enjoy? And because if we don't pay attention, and it's something very internal, and it's your own consciousness that is, nobody can really check, what you're thinking. There might be some very exalted yogis who can read your mind, or sometimes somebody's very often, very obviously, like sometimes we did some, as brahmacharis, we did some programs in different places, some yoga studios, and Priti Prabhu always tells, like if you do a program in a yoga studio, and sometimes there are just people who are doing bhajan or kirtan, and you can smell it, they're just they don't know what they're really doing, and they're just enjoying, they're just enjoying being seen, and how they present themselves, how they intonate their voice, all very much just a show to get attention. So sometimes it's very obvious, and the more advanced you are, the more easily you will see it in others, maybe also. But we should not forget to look at ourselves, because it can happen at any moment. It's happening all the time, actually. But we have to be attentive. The weeds will not stop growing; they will keep growing also. But we have to be attentive to pluck. So this part of Bhakti Yoga is called Anartha Nivritti. So Anartha Nivritti is all these unwanted tendencies and habits. We need to learn to uproot them. And sometimes it seems impossible, but actually it is possible. Generally, there is this rule of thumb that by following a practice for 4 weeks, 4 cycles of the moon, or like a full cycle of the moon, a month, you could also say, it becomes a habit. So it's all a question of habituation. What habits have we cultivated? Have we cultivated a habit of being, externally, proper, and internally you're still deviating, or could be anything. It could be also something very simple, like waking up early, or eating a certain amount. Anything that you do for, a month, it becomes a habit, negative or positive. So you have to decide. What habits do you want to cultivate? Because the habits that you cultivate, once they're cultivated, you minimum have to, again, 4 weeks steadily, undo the habits with a new habit. And it's not so easy. I've tried a few times with different things. And some things go well, but some things, after a few days, you don't even notice, and then you forgot about it, and then you're like, oh, actually I wanted to create this new habit, Already a week gone, So It is not easy, but actually it's not too far away also. And it's a question of being attentive. It's also a question of having a strong desire, cultivating a strong desire for what we actually want. Because this is a very common advice acharyas give and also spiritual masters. If you don't have the desire, but you have the philosophical understanding, theoretical understanding, you can pray for the desire to have the desire. So we can always start somewhere. And because this is also a very nice point I thought Savyasachi Prabhu made, was that ultimately it's all about having this like very deep desire. Like if you dig very deep, ultimately there is very many philosophers who have thought about it, or in all kinds of pop culture is also always mentioned. Do you believe in the good in people or not? Like at the core, is ultimately every person really good? Or not? So it's always a question. Or are there pure evil people? And pure good people. So this is often a question asked. We of course, and we would say that externally there might be conditionings that it might be very evil or very sattvic, very pure, but at the core, each one of us, we are jiva atmas. We are part and parcels of the spiritual of God. So at the core, every living entity, no matter how cruel or weird the person currently might be, at the core that person is spiritual and truly good. So we have to try to connect to that true nature, or you could also say the real ego. Because the ahankara, Srila Prabhupada is interestingly always translating ahankara as false ego. Ahankara, most Indians understand ahankara, but Srila Prabhupada translated it as false ego. So false ego implies that there is real ego. Because some idea is also that ego is always problematic. Ego is always a problem. The best solution is there should be no ego at all. So this is also one solution. The ego is the problem. But we don't agree. Ego is not the problem. The problem is when the ego is external, when the ego is misdirected. Then it's problematic. You could also say the ego is problematic when it identifies with something it is not. Like in the very beginning of Krishna consciousness, the devotees were perceived as being crazy. Maybe still, something that, especially in the West, it was a big culture shock. Suddenly, Srila Prabhupada came to the West, and thousands of young people, they dress in traditional Indian dress. Not even Indians are using it, but Western people are using it. And then they run over all the streets of Europe and the world, and do Harinam Sankirtan. So many people thought they're crazy. These young people have gone completely crazy. First they were hippies, now they're really crazy. And Srila Prabhupada noticed that, or heard about it, and then he wrote an article, Who is Crazy? I forgot all the details of it, but it's a very interesting short article where Srila Prabhupada establishes, what really is madness or craziness. And he, in summary, says, we have a skin disease, that's madness. To identify with the external body as the true self is madness. Because the external body is temporary, and changes. Every life you change body, and because of this skin disease, there are so many problems. Brown against white, yellow, red. Like even in India, even it becomes really complicated. The different castes, and higher castes, lower castes, and Dalits, and we identify so strongly with our body and our skin that all kinds of conflicts, evolve, and that is crazy. To fight based on the body is crazy. So Srila Prabhupada then established that, of course, not being crazy is trying to understand what the true nature of the self is. What is constant? What is constant in all living entities? And that's, of course, what we're trying to do. We're trying to, by self-realization, understand what the ultimate eternal nature of the self is. So the false ego is when we look outside, we see our body, then we see our family, we see our, country club or football club or cricket club, we see our nation also, and then we identify with it. This is me. But actually, that's not really us. The main feature of the ahankara is outward projection. So the ahankara is projecting anything of to identify with, or also a source of pleasure, source of satisfaction, everything outside. And in Sanskrit, this is called Bahiranga Shakti. So the Bahiranga Shakti is all the external world, external reality. We take it for real. And it becomes so real that whenever, because it's also more subtle, like any emotion that you have, any thought that you have, you think that is me. If you have an emotion, you say, I am hungry. Actually, your body is hungry because you didn't give enough food. Your body is tired. The actual self, the Atma, is not tired, is not hungry. The Atma has a different hankering. It's much deeper, and it's Antaranga Shakti. So that's the internal reality. So Antaranga Shakti means that it's a very simple indication also. That's the whole process of yoga and meditation. You're sitting here, so what do you do? Do we try to become, entangled, occupied, preoccupied, with the external world? Or do we at least take some time of the day where we focus internally? And once you have attained a certain level of realization, every movement of your life, is connected to the internal reality. So the entire spiritual reality is inside. Our true self is inside, and that's when we also transcend the false ego. The false ego is pushing our attention or drawing our attention outwards. And meditation and yoga is when we focus internally. And then we can gain self-realization. So self-realization is described as similar to when the sun rises. Self-realization and God-realization go hand in hand. It does not mean that you become God. It means that as the sun rises, you can see yourself. So the more we have God realization, we will be able to really see ourselves. Now we're not seeing ourselves. When we look in the mirror, that's not you. And your passport, that's not you. Like Pavani, Paramahamsa Gaura Prabhu told us, we have a small girl here. Her name is Pavani. She got a passport for 10 years, as a small baby. So 10 years later, the officials will be a little bit like, is this really the same girl? Because the body changes. In medicine, we know that every 7 years, all the cells of the body are replaced. So if you're 21, you already have 3 bodies, 28, 4 bodies, and so on. So we're always already changing bodies. So changing bodies is not the question. At death, we have a more sudden change, but changing bodies is happening all the time. The cells are dying and being reproduced, and the moment the reproduction level to the production level is not the same, we start aging. So we should understand that ultimately the nature of the self is something that is internal, that is consistent, it's actually eternal. And that's the definition of life, you could say, in the Vedas, is that life is not just combination of physical reactions, biological reactions, chemical reactions. But life is Sat Chit Ananda. That is life. Life is that it is eternal. It's consistent. Life is Chit. Life is consciousness. And life is Ananda. Bliss. That's the reason why we live. And most people have intuitively have this perception of life. If you ask anybody, very few people will say, yes, life is a combination of physical, biological, and chemical reactions. If they're studying science, maybe they will say that. But the majority of people, when they ask what is life, they have all kinds of different ideas. Life means, adventure. Life means, family. Life means, love. Because ultimately, life means is what we are experiencing. It's not the external functions of the body. So this is one of the main problems that we can find in modern science, is that each one of the different modern sciences coexist in silos, means they coexist separately from each other. So modern psychology and modern, physics and modern biology, they are all separate silos, not really connected to each other. So, and basically you could say each one of these schools of thought, they have the tendency to try to explain everything just within their silo. So, they will say, mind studies or psychology, all of this is not really measurable, so it's not really valid. And psychologists would say, no, but I mean, psychology is more important because, psychology, like that's how you feel, You have a perfect body, but you're crazy, What's the use, So that's the beauty of Vedanta philosophy, because everything comes together. There is metaphysics, there's psychology, there's spirituality, everything is connected. And that's also, of course, the reality. We have a physical body, we have a subtle body, manas, chitta, ahankara, manas, buddhi, ahankara. And then ultimately we have the Atma, the true self. So understanding the connection of the Atma with the Chitta and with the Sharira, or you could say body, mind, soul, everybody knows those three words, It's a combination of those three. That is reality. But in the combination of those, in the connection of those three, we should understand what their, you could say, clear hierarchy is, So the Vedas say that the external gross body always lasts for 100 years. So some people live 80, some people live 120, But the body lasts for 100 years, relatively speaking. Just like, for example, dogs, their lifespan is shorter than ours, but they also live 100 dog years. You know about that, no? So a dog years, in comparison to human years, is in proportion to from 1 to 7. So in 1 human year, 7 years of a dog will pass. So if you want to know how old the dog is, you have to calculate the years you have the dog times 7. Then okay, this dog is not 7 years old, It's 7 times 7, which is how much? 63? No, 49. So almost 50. Like that. So time is relative, And there are trees, in our planet that are thousands of years old. There are trees in America, for example, in the west coast of America. There are the redwood trees, you might have heard. They're gigantic, huge trees, pine trees. And some of those trees are 2,000, 3,000 years old. So that means that tree, some of the trees are older than Julius Caesar, or older than Chandragupta Maurya, And there are also some trees in Vrindavan. We have very ancient trees, and they're supposed to have been there in the time of Krishna Lila, And it's very likely. There are even older trees. Like in Greece, there's a famous olive tree is 8,000 years old. So, but that's 100 years for a tree. You know? So we, relatively speaking, live always just 100 years, you know, in this body. But the person who is having that experience by the subtle body, so you could say the body that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can taste maybe, you know. If it's vegetarian, you can taste, you know, some leaves, you know. You can smell it, you know. So whatever you can perceive through the 5 senses is the gross body, you know, external body. But we also have a subtle body. So the subtle body is made out of emotions, thoughts, feelings, you know, intelligence, discrimination, and ultimately identification, you know, ahankara. So this is the subtle body. So this subtle body lasts much, much longer. You know? As long as you are within material nature, you have a subtle body. You know? And the subtle body is different than the gross body, because the gross body, you know, we have it for one life, you know, a certain form, maybe a dog or a tree or a human, you know, and we grow and then we die and then we change body. You know? But the subtle body is always changing. Every moment, you know, every samskara, every impression, every, you know, everything that we experience through the senses leaves an impression in the subtle body. So we can imagine the subtle body to be like a ball of clay. You know? You have a ball of clay, and then you eat for the first time sugar. You know, so first time eating sugar, you know, a child, you know, or first time eating lemon, you know, it's always very funny when children eat the first time lemon. They're very confused, you know. And this leaves an impression, you know. So now you have the desire for sugar, you know, or maybe lemon also, you know? Whatever it might be. All these experiences, at every moment, every second, we are, you know, creating impressions into the subtle body. And so the subtle body is always forming. You know? So in the Bhagavad Gita, we hear this in a very simple set of examples, that if you like to eat meat, for example, you know, eating meat is a certain desire. And as a human, we don't really have the teeth, you know, to like bite through a, you know, what do you call it? Yeah, flesh, but the leather, the skin, you know, of an animal, you know. Our teeth are not very sharp, you know. And also our intestines are very long, you know, so they're not really meant for digesting meat. But if you still do it, you know, you still have the desire for meat, you eat meat, then you are creating a certain impression. You know? And there's your subtle body, your mind, desire, emotion, sensation is changing in a certain way. You know? So at the time of death, you know, when you die, your subtle body has now changed into a certain way. So fitting to that form the subtle body has now taken, there is always a fitting gross body. You know? So you like eating meat, there are plenty of bodies are perfect for eating meat. You know, lion, tiger, leopards, wolves, whatever it might be. You know, or if you eat without discrimination, you know, just then the best body is, of course, what is the best body? Who eats everything? The pigs, yeah, the hogs. In Vrindavan, I saw once a pig, you know. In Vrindavan, there's open sewer. You know, many parts of India still. India used to be so advanced long time ago. Now it's worse than before. But it might get better soon. There was this open sewer, you know, big, hairy, fat pig, you know. He just jumped into the sewer and opened his mouth. And all the dirt was flowing into his mouth. And he was very happy. He was rolling there, very happy, you know. So if you like to eat without discrimination, pig body perfect, you know, can digest anything, you know, no problem. They don't even need eyes, you know. I had a pig in Berlin where I was working I did my civil service in a children's farm in Berlin, and they had this Chinese black pig, you know, and it was so big that it had become so fat that the eyes were completely closed, you know. But it was no problem, because all the pig needed was a nose, So whenever I would bring the residue from the last day, the food, he was banging against the door, And then he would eat it all, no problem, Very happy. You like to eat a lot, pig body is the best, If you like to sleep a lot, there's also many good bodies, You sleep, generally it says between 5 and 8 hours is recommended, Depending on what dosa we have, Pitta, Kapha, or Vata dosa, different amounts of sleep are needed, but between 5 and 8 hours. If you eat more than you actually need, then there are other bodies that are more equipped, And anybody of you might have this experience. You sleep too much, you're not more rested. You feel more tired, You feel more lethargic, and so sleeping too much is not really helpful ultimately. And for example, bears, they have inbuilt sleeping bag, very fluffy, very cozy, and you can sleep half year. You eat all the summer, and then winter you go to your cave and you sleep 6 months sleeping. Or serpents also do that, big serpents. They eat a cow, they eat a turtle, they eat a donkey, maybe a human. In the Amazon, we have big snakes, Between the eyes, this distance, So the head is like this, And they sleep sometimes 2 years, They just sleep and digest everything they have eaten. Or there is also the, what's it called? Faultier. What's it called in English? Faultier. Sloth, yeah. The sloth, the sloth? It's a very cute animal. Yeah? The sloth has, very long claws and a very dreamy face. And they move their hand like this when they're climbing a tree, and then they take a nap. 10 minutes, then they wake up, and then they finish moving their hand. Then they lift the left leg slowly, and then they sleep again. So after 2 hours, they have moved maybe 1 meter. So this is sloth life, It's very nice, if you like that. But so there's, for any desires we are cultivating, there is the fitting body. Basically, you could also say whatever shape you're shaping your subtle body, there is a fitting gross external body. So the gross body lasts 100 years. The subtle body is constantly changing shape, depending on what you are desiring and doing for, as long as you remain, in the samsara. Samsara? Samsara chakra is the wheel of birth and death, And the Vedas describe 8,400,000 different species of life. This is very interesting because we read this number in the books of Srila Prabhupada and we're like, okay, maybe, we don't know. Never counted them, But the scientists are counting, So one time I was reading a magazine while we were putting petrol. I was a brahmachari, and I was, taking the excuse, I'll do the petrol, In reality, I went to read some magazine also, So I opened the magazine, and I'm reading about the jungle in Peru, this Manu forest, in Peru, and they have this research center called Manu Research Center, and they are counting all the living entities in the world. And the reason why they have one station in Peru is because the jungle of Peru is one of the biggest biodiversity places on the planet. And every day they discover dozens and sometimes hundreds of new species. Every day they're finding new species, new forms of life. And at the time I read this magazine, they had counted 2,800,000 different species. That's maybe 15 years ago. And then in the magazine, they said, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I'm like, what? He says that there are 8,400,000 species according to the Vedic texts, And the scientists were very impressed with this number because they think it might be accurate, Because they have different, formulas they develop to try to estimate, how many species might be there. Because one thing is also they know that many species are extinguished before they can find them. So this is also mentioned in the Vedas. Not all species are manifested always, but that's how many exist, in all of creation, So on this planet, it might not be all 8,400,000, available. Not at all times, for sure. So yes, the samsara chakra will lead us, up and down. You have 8 million, like this wheel, the ferry wheel, big ferry wheel, with 8,400,000 stations, That's reincarnation, samsara chakra. And you might do many rounds, and you can also go crisscross, Generally speaking, animals develop, from one form to the next. As humans, especially, we have a choice, in which direction we move. Do we elevate ourselves or do we degrade ourselves? Okay, I think I'll stop here. Maybe there is some question, comments, additions, corrections. Yes. Okay. Okay. From Berlin?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's saying that, translating how accurately, he's saying that we are supposed to liberate our parents, that devotee should liberate his parents.
Okay, yeah.
Said that he could liberate his parents. And he's asking, is it meant for my current parents, meaning the souls now in this body, or my previous parents as well?
Very interesting question. Yes, because the topic here, actually, I deviated a little bit from the main topic here, but because the situation here is that Dhruva Maharaj is about to be liberated. Nanda and Sunanda come, and they're about to take him, the Vaikuntha Vimana, back to the spiritual world, and he's hesitating. So he's hesitating, and Nanda and Sunanda, they realize, they know why he's hesitating. That you're hesitating because you're thinking of your mother. His mother. From the very beginning, of course, the mother is the first guru, Adi Guru. But not only that, his mother also guided him spiritually and gave him the right hint, to move to go to the forest to search for Krishna. And then the two Vaikuntha Vishnudutas, they pointed to Dhruva, look, your mother is already going ahead. Gachatim, she's already going ahead. So she's already liberated because you are liberated. So that's the topic here. And if you read the Bhagavatam or different Puranas, there's all kind of in different situations, different stories, different, you could say, promises, or sometimes it says, if you read this story, and follow this specific sadhana, 7 parents, in this from this body, 7 generations, back and forward will be liberated along with you, And sometimes it says 100 in both directions, Sometimes only one direction is emphasized, only your forefathers, So there are different blessings in different parts. But the question that Clemens is asking is related to reincarnation. So, only this life or your past lives also, So as far as I've read, usually it refers to the current, if you in this life attain perfection, who is related to you in this life. But I had this question myself at one point, and I wanted to research it more, but I haven't yet. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the question was, what about the previous life of the Mahabhagavat? Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Okay, thank you very much. So we will have breakfast in 5 minutes. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktarinda ki jai, Simhachalam Dham ki jai. Maybe today better we sit down together, no? Because tomorrow will be. I look in my